If you enjoy my podcast, then please subscribe, leave a rating and a review. Please visit my website, mikedelferro.com, where you also will find links to my other podcast, Self-Management for Musicians. You will also find links to my music and my socials. And of course, please share this podcast with anyone interested. Nothing beats the word of mouth. Thank you. Know each other for so many years, and the reason we're sitting here today is because we had the incredible honor and joy to be very close and perform with Jack DeJohnette, legendary drummer who passed away on October 26th in 2025, age 83, a legend. I mean, Jack, what can we say? Frans, welcome. Thanks for joining me here.
Yeah, I'm. Hey, Mike. It's been a while, but thanks for inviting me, and wonderful that you brought this idea in to share the incredible memory we have on Jack DeJohnette, as you said.
Yeah, because I thought about myself. Well, I have such a intense history with him. I thought I can go by myself, record a solo podcast. And I thought, no, I want to be more interactive, invite someone who was also for a big deal experience. We experienced this together. So I thought a lot of this with Jack. So I thought, hey, you're the perfect person to talk to and to make this, so I don't see this as an interview podcast like, hey, Frans, what do you think about Jack? But really something we share about him. The experiences we share.
Yeah, we absolutely do. We even have some memories from some concerts. We right before this podcast, we have been listening to some really special moments. We played in trio, and but before I met Jack DeJohnette, I think there was a little more history with you, Mike, and Jack DeJohnette. What was the first meeting you had with him?
So I met Jack through a family connection. And this sounds maybe very weird, but that was the case. So my ex-wife, Tuffy, her mother is Tineke de Nooy, and she used to be like the Dutch version of Oprah Winfrey. She had a primetime TV show in the 90s, and she was really incredibly famous. The older generation will remember her because she had like I said, primetime Saturday at 6:00.
90s.
Yeah. And she's still around, and we're very close still. And she's a big jazz lover. And Jack performed at her show. Hmm. And even before, they had kind of a sort of a history because her husband, her ex-husband, the father of my ex-wife, was also a jazz musician. And they also knew Jack already. So there was already some history there. But they were very close friends. So when I met my ex-wife at the time, Tuffy, Jack for her was kind of an uncle, like a family friend, and I, like, it's Uncle Jack, so, and then I met him through that angle.
Yeah.
So it was like, wow, Jack DeJohnette, I was just starting, I was very green, and that's how I met him. And then, there's so many stories to tell, of course, but we went on holiday. We went to their house, and of course I have to mention his wife, Lydia, and their daughters, Farah and Minia.
Where was the house?
In Willow. Willow is close to Woodstock in New York, upstate New York. Very close to the famous Woodstock village.
Where a lot of musicians live together?
Yes.
Or...
Yeah, in fact...
The neighborhood?
Yeah, in fact, Pep Metheny had a house next door where his mother lived. Dave Holland, I think he still lives there. Sonny Rollins. So, yeah, there were a lot of legendary jazz musicians who still live there or lived there. And they also showed up at the house sometimes, you know. It was that kind of vibe. So I was really close. We went there. We stayed with them, you know. We had dinners together, and also at that time, Matthew Garrison, the bass player, he was also living there with Jack and Lydia. You know, they were very welcoming people, very social, very, you know, it was also a great vibe. And that was, of course, for me, like almost surreal in a way.
And Jack DeJohnette, he knew that you were a piano player.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he had a piano. He was a great pianist, you know, so not only a drummer. And there was a piano there in the living room. I started playing, and you know, and of course, he already knew I knew about music, and that was obvious, like from the very first moment. You know, the musicians, you start playing, and then immediately, in a very nice, loving way, he started to coach me and give me tips, and it was great. I mean, I had it from Jack DeJohnette, and of course all the experiences he had about Keith and timing and harmony. He was he knew so much. Of course, it was Jack DeJohnette, and so I was so incredibly grateful for that.
Yeah, and did the occasion happen that you jammed together in his house?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there was the piano, the acoustic piano in the living room, and then sometimes he would take an acoustic bass and stand next to me, you know, do duets. But then sometimes we went to the cellar where he had keyboards set up, and Matthew came with his electric bass, and we played in the cellar, and yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. And then, you know, but the thing was, of course, you know, I was working on my career, playing gigs and everything, but I never wanted to jeopardize the friendship by asking him to play, because we were so close. It was really a close friendship. We went, like, he used to do these tours with Keith in Europe, and they played like 8 or 9 concerts, all the major festivals and whatever. And then after that, you know, both the families, we rented like a huge house in Tuscany or in Umbria and stayed there, and so it was that close. Yeah. So if someone is so close to you and you realize, well, I'm of course not at that level, you know, I never said to him, Jack, can we play a gig or something? I never did that. But he kept following me, and at some point he called me and he said, look, I'm going to be in Europe in between 2 tours, and I'm not going to go back to America because of the jet lag. And man, you're ready for it. Get us a gig. Yeah. I was like,
yeah, that's what I remember.
Yeah. And then, of course, there was one phone call to the BIM House, our famous jazz venue in Amsterdam. Yeah. And then, of course, and Jack asked, do you know a good bass player? I said, I think I know the perfect bass player, Dutch bass player for this occasion. And then you came into the picture.
I came in, yeah. I remember you called me for that. And you told me the story, like Jack DeJohnette suggested playing, and you started saying to him, I beg your pardon. Yeah, in that way. And then exactly as you said. And I think what happened is that we also approached the conservatory where I was teaching already, and we also did a workshop in the conservatory in the same week.
Yeah.
And I also remember that we had rehearsals in your house in Landsmeer, and that was some experience. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah. That was, we used to live there. That was actually, it's a city, well, very close to Amsterdam. And because he wanted to rehearse. He was endorsed by Sonor at that time, because I didn't have a drum kit at home, and I think they delivered a drum kit.
No, this is
what do you remember? I don't exactly remember that part.
Like yesterday, I remembered that. Yeah, the guys from actually first we met. You know, so your house was the first meeting, and I remember a not too open. I won't say the word grumpy, but just, you know, closed and reserved, as we call it. The person who said, hi, what's your name again? Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Jack DeJohnette. And his wife Lydia was there. And then he said, yeah, we have to wait for the drums because Sonar is endorsing me, and they will deliver a drum set. Within a short time, this big van arrived, like a DHL or some drum shipment, and there was a complete brand new sonar kit delivered, and of course the drum set was, signature Jack DeJohnette. He kind of developed a drum set together with sonar, so they delivered that, and he packed it out, and it was, it was too new. And there were also signed cymbals, like Jack DeJohnette cymbals. And they sounded horrible, I remember.
Yeah.
And there was this funny moment, you probably remember. It's a pity we didn't take pictures from it. He said, the trick is that we have to stand on the cymbal, but not on the cup, but on the cup downwards. So we can stand on the, the curve upside down.
Yeah, I forgot.
And we were... Without knowing each other, we were like brothers in the circle of three, stamping on the cymbal to get it some souplesse in the iron,
And jumping on
jumping on it up and down, and hi, nice to meet you. And there we were. Without playing any notes, we were there already in a funny situation, which broke the ice.
Yeah.
In a really nice way.
Well, he was kind of shy, a little bit reserved.
Shy is the word.
Yeah, it was shyness.
Me too. I was shy too.
Yeah, but yeah. But always also in public, a lot of people always, approaching him. So he was a little bit always reserved. But once you knew him and he opened up, he was totally open, and
that was.
But he needed some time with new people.
Yeah,
that was. Yeah, I mean, he was like
and
that.
then the funny moment I also remember is that. So the moment came that we started playing, and he took the sticks, and this brand new drum set who kind of sounded too cold, and he started playing, and I was kind of surprised. It was also a kind of dismystification, like, is that the great Jack DeJohnette? It sounded very sloppy, and it was not. Yeah, I cannot say it was not in time, of course, but it sounded like somebody who was trying out an instrument without playing it before. Excuse my words, but of course there was this touch, and you saw that, okay, but it took a while, and he didn't give anything of his capacities, of course, because that was his character also, that he was waiting and shy, and genuine integrity, how do you call that?
Integrity and tuning, really in the moment.
And it took a while before, I felt a trust that we're going to do this in the Beer Mouse. And what I really appreciated in this intense week we had is that the first stage we had, I think that was the conservatory, and we talked about what shall we play, and then Jack suggested a great thing. He said, let's just find each other by sound.
Yep.
And I think the first thing he did was take a microphone, like I'm talking into, and he held it under the cymbal before we started playing anything, and he banged the cymbal, ding, and then he was playing with the microphone under the cymbal by finding the acoustics of the place. Wonderful, because you can say, okay, let's play All the Things You Are, and there we go. No, he said, let's first find the sound in the room, then we find each other by just vamping and droning on some sounds, and maybe we played for 20 minutes like that, and then we played a tune I don't remember.
Going into a tune, yeah.
That was the first really impressive experience I had with him, that he was completely sensitive with the room and the people, and approaching that on a beautiful way. Yeah,
and what I also remember, speaking about this, is down at his cellar, at his basement in the house where he had his music room, he also used to do that. I remember he sat down, so that was his own environment, the drums he knew, his own setup, and he also would like just start like, not like going in and play a heavy groove. He just, because he was always talking about energy in a very spiritual way, and every day is different, every moment is different, and so he was very always into like searching for the sound in the moment, regardless of the environment.
And then also, he did other things, very sensitive. I remember we were eating, and I think Tuffy cooked, and then he was kind of touching the food without touching. Yeah, he was with his fingers in the plate, but he was feeling the temperature and something. So, like being very mindful with the food he was about to eat.
Yeah. Yeah. I also remember he ate some meat and then he said, I want to thank the animal who gave his life to be eaten. Yeah, he was very, very like that. And I also remember at restaurants, he would he was kind of funny, or he was kind of slow in other things, not when he played music, but so he could stare at the menu at a restaurant and asking many questions to the waiter. He was very conscious about the ingredients, and he Blidia too, both.
We both should.
Yeah. And of course, but he was also honest about the fact that in earlier stages of his life, he had his, he took some things and some substances which were maybe not too healthy. He was very open about that, but in that stage he was already very conscious, and also like in the garden they used to have like kind of Indian ceremonies. He was also obsessed with life on other planets, and so he was. I mean, you hear that in the music, of course.
Yeah.
So
do you remember also, because you mentioned before that he was a good piano player? Well, I heard that on the rehearsal too, because this was so great. He suggested you had some material. I think I even brought a tune in. Jack brought in a few tunes. We played that. And then he said, do you know the one finger snap? And Mike said, well, I don't know. And he said, let me play it on the piano for you. And then, man, then there was this amazing piano player playing, like in and out that tune you could hear immediately. And it was swinging. It was with great left hand voicings and virtuoso on the right hand. I thought, wow, this is so. I had almost a more impressive first impression on his piano playing than his drumming when we met in his house, You
know what I remember? That really blew my mind. I was once playing at his house, and he said, hey, what's that chord? What are you playing there? And I said, well, I'm playing this, this kind of voicing. Oh, that's cool. Show me. So I was literally, and then he sat down at the piano, and he couldn't reproduce it. I thought, how is this possible? I always and then I literally had to take Jack's fingers and put them on the right keys, and then he pressed the keys, and then that was the chord. So the interesting thing was, and I experienced in other moments as well, if he had to kind of, from an intellectual point, approach the music, he kind of, he couldn't kind of reproduce it. He had trouble finding the notes and the chords and the harmony. But when he just started playing, he connected to something, and it just came all out.
Yeah.
But he played pianos for hours. I remember at the house too.
Yeah.
He played. Actually, in the private situation, whenever I was around him, he hardly played the drums. He was always playing piano. But on the other hand, I remember conversations we had about Philly Joe Jones and about all the masters, and he knew every fill. I mean, he knew the history. He knew everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, there was this evening when we can talk about it later, that he was spending more than an hour on little fills. Philly Joe Jones played with Bill Evans, and he imitated it with this. He was singing the voice and tapping it on the tables, and was almost crying about the genius of Philly Joe Jones. I was really impressed by that sense of history too.
He was very appreciative in general, and of course he told great stories about Miles, about Keith, experiences. Amazing. So back to the concert at the Bimhuis in Amsterdam. I also remember before the concert we went to an Indonesian restaurant, because he loved Indonesian food, and we kind of booked like the most expensive one. I mean, you're with Jack, and he ordered way too much food. And on the way to the restaurant after the sound check, there was this street musician playing. Do you remember this?
Yeah, of course. He took everything in doggy bags.
Yeah.
And he says, well, let's find a good goal, a good purpose for this food.
Yeah. He invited us to play with him in Italy.
Yeah, because I don't really remember how much time there was in between, but I'm sure there was something he appreciated in the playing together with us in the BIM house, because that's exactly what you said. We didn't invite him, but he invited us.
But there was this hotel in Italy close to Ancona.
Yes.
And the owner who passed away, unfortunately, he was a big jazz lover, and he loved Jack. And he invited him, there was like this 5-star hotel, and the deal was we could stay there, have an amazing holiday, unlimited food. And he created a mini festival out of this because Danilo Perez was there, Jeff Ballard, Avishai Cohen, the bass player. And thanks to that, I actually became friends with Danilo, who later, I'm still in touch with Danilo, and he invited me to play in Panama at some point. So also, that was amazing. And we had like this wonderful time sharing stories at the pool.
At the pool, with your children were very small. They were there.
Yeah.
And I remember that.
Yeah.
And then do you remember that Jack was playing with us? We were playing with him, of course, and he took care of us very well, and he said, whenever you want to go anywhere, just let the owner know, and this and that. It takes a while before we play, but I have another concert with Keith Jarrett and Gary Peacock, and he invited us for that concert too. That was the same week, huh?
Yeah.
And I remember this was, maybe you met them before, this was an incredible moment for me where I met my absolute hero on the bass, Mr. Gary Peacock. And I also, met is a big word, but I got a glimpse, and I don't think he got a glimpse of me, but that was Keith Jarrett. He was absolutely not interested in anybody else than the trio on this moment.
And especially in Keith himself, to be honest.
I felt something like that, but I remember Jack was very kind, and he had this wonderful invitation. He said, Gary, this is the bass player I was talking about. We have a gig here in the hotel. And Gary Peacock, he immediately looked me incredibly in the eyes, through my eyes to, I don't know what happened, but he said, hi, I'm Gary Peacock. And this was so incredibly intense. So I'm very happy I was giving the opportunity of meeting my big hero. And then it was fantastic because it was right after the concert, and the first thing Gary Peacock said to Jack DeJohnette is, yeah, Jack, there were some great Count Basie grooves tonight.
Yeah.
So that blew my mind also. I thought, wow, where would they talk about these musicians on that level? And they talk about Count Basie. Isn't that great?
Yeah, I don't want this to be a Keith Jarrett podcast because Jack played with him, but there are a couple of details about Keith which I think are interesting to share. I don't know, I don't remember if you were on the soundcheck in Italy, but I was also he once played in Carnegie Hall when we were visiting him in America. So I drove him to Carnegie Hall there was, and then Keith would ask for 3 or 4 Steinway pianos, and they were all lined up, and then he would, and I thought is this kind of diva behavior but he was so incredibly serious about testing these pianos, and he played Bach, and then another one, and then he asked the trio to play, and he took hours before he chose one of the pianos, and he did that all the time. And then on that particular concert, I think it was in Ancona, he fell in love with the Steinway there at the concert hall, and he bought it. And then he had a piano and I think they stored it in Switzerland somewhere. And then after that, he used it in all his tours in Europe, and they would send the piano around all over Europe.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy my podcast, then please subscribe, leave a rating and a review. Please visit my website, mikedelferro.com, where you also will find links to my other podcast, Self-Management for Musicians. You will also find links to my music and my socials. And of course, please share this podcast with anyone interested. Nothing beats the word of mouth. Thank you. And they were also the only act in jazz. I knew it. I still think it's like that. Or maybe, I don't know how other famous jazz musicians travel. But Keith rented a house in the south of France. And they had a private jet. And then they flew to all these concerts.
Yeah.
So they flew to The Hague at that time to play at the North Sea. Or to Umbria or wherever. To Perugia in Italy. Wherever they... And then... After the concert, they just went on the plane and they stayed in the same house because they didn't want to travel hotels and all of that. At least Keith didn't. I don't think Jack and Gary cared that much, but yeah.
You had to drive them with your old Volvo. The night before we went to Ancona, I was in touch with Jack. This was 2003, so it was not natural for everybody to have a mobile phone and call international.
Yeah.
I mean, not with American. So it was by mail, by email, and bring your bass, this and that. And I came to the airport, and I came there with my bass in the flight case, and the ground control said, "No, that's not gonna happen." That bass. I said, "Yes, it's going to happen because I have a very important concert." "No, it's not going to happen." "What is happening?" They said, "The plane is too small. It won't fit in the plane." So there was this, this Fokker F-27 propeller jet. And I was complete in panic. I thought this is going to be the most wonderful concert in my life. Italy, Jack DeJohnette, Mike Del Ferro. And I called Jack DeJohnette and said, "Don't worry, we're going to get you a bass." And he sounded so
confident.
So I said, okay. And then I parked my bass in the storage of Schiphol for a week. And I came there and there was a bass. It was a fantastic bass. So that was one of those bass stories. And then I'm not sure, but I think what happened next is that you had contacts in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And you kind of saw the opportunity of organizing a big concert in the famous Taipei concert hall,
the Chiang Kai-shek concert hall, which looks like a huge Chinese temple.
Exactly, yeah. And I think this was a very professional gig.
Yeah.
With everything was taken care of, and Jack kind of immediately said, "Sure."
Yeah.
When, how, what time.
Yeah, he just accepted the offer.
Exactly.
And
which was not completely natural for us to expect. He said,
"No.
What time, when, where?" Yeah.
No, the only thing he really required, I mean, of course, he had his fee, but also a business class ticket. But there was a good sponsor, so he flew there, and so he came only for that concert.
Yeah.
And that's the trip from New York to Taipei.
Yeah.
With the time difference, crossing the date line. I remember that was like a 3,000 seater, this hall, and was totally sold out.
Yeah.
And he actually taught me one of the greatest lessons, which I will never forget. I actually, in one of my previous podcasts, spoke about this regarding stage fright. Because, the thing is, if you are a pianist, a jazz pianist, and you play with Jack DeJohnette, there's kind of the Keith Jarrett kind of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You go like, oh man, he plays with Keith, the greatest on earth, one of the greatest. And he plays with Herbie, he plays with everybody, he played with Miles, but especially Keith at that time. So I was really nervous before that gig. It was not a gig, it was a serious concert. And he saw I was nervous, and he came up to me and he said to me, "Look, if you go on that stage, there's only one thing you need to remember, and that's have fun." And then he came closer to me that I even could smell his breath. He said, have fun, just like that, And that was, if Jack does that, it was impressive. And then I thought about myself, yeah, I am who I am. I wouldn't be playing here if I would be the worst pianist in the world. And something happened to me that I wouldn't say, I would never talk about myself about playing great, but I was having a lot of fun, and I think I played really good at that concert because he gave me that input.
I think so too, and everybody can see that there are some clips on YouTube from that concert, and I think we have fun there.
Yeah.
What I remember is a wonderful meeting in the Taipei airport. I think we arrived at the same time, and we came there, and there were two big limousines.
Yeah.
One for Jack and one for us. And Jack, the first thing he said, come on, we take the same car. And the shy Taiwanese driver said, oh, okay, then I go home. And there were two Mercedeses, And then we were, and immediately it was about, wow, it's great. I haven't been here a long time, or maybe it was the first time, and this and that and that and that. And it was relaxed. We knew each other a bit because we had spent time in Ancona in the swimming pool with children and families, drinking wine, good wine, I remember, talking about Philly Joe Jones. So the ice was broke.
I was still nervous for that concert because it was such a huge... when you played the Bimhuis in Amsterdam, that was our first concert. And that was also a challenge. But for some reason, that kind of... Because, the Bimhuis, we know it. But playing in a huge sold-out concert hall with 3,000 seats...
Yeah.
That was, I thought it was quite a challenge.
I also remember this moment where we went from the taxi to the concert hall to the dressing rooms. And I'm used to share dressing rooms. Dressing room, Mr. Del Ferro. Dressing room, Mr. Van Ruven. Dressing room, Mr. Jack DeJohnette. 3 separate dressing rooms. And I thought, that's an update in my life to have your own dressing room. That was the first time I experienced that. And but the great thing is that Jack had this small, mini speaker wired with his phone, and he said, "Come in my dressing room." And he said, "Yeah, last week we recorded this. It's coming out pretty soon." And he showed us an incredible recording of Larry Golding's, Jack DeJohnette, and John Scofield, the record Saudades. And it wasn't out, and we were the first. He showed it. Yeah, we have to edit some things, but it was wild music. They played that first blues that's on the record, and he was burning on that. And it was a kind of trust that he showed us in the first.
Amazing, huh? I think with this talk, we kind of paid a nice tribute to Jack. And
absolutely, yeah. There was one after a long time after this. Suddenly there was somebody searching for me, and in the first my first reactions, I didn't see. It was kind of an email from a mysterious email address, not Mike Del Ferro at MikeDelFerro.com, something. It was like a mysterious name. But then I saw it. It was Jack DeJohnette. But he of course, he came in my spam box.
Oh my God!
And I don't know what happened, but somebody said maybe you have to watch your. My wife probably said maybe you haven't checked your spam box because Jack DeJohnette is looking for you. And then I got a call from you right after that. Hey, Frans, you better call Jack because he's looking for you. And then I got in touch with him, and he said, yeah, this famous man who was a promoter in Europe for all of the things Jack did when he was in Europe. I think the office was called Saudades.
Yeah, but that was Thomas Townsend.
That's the name.
And he was the founder of ECM together with Manfred Eicher. Right. They founded ECM. And Thomas Townsend also had the agency, and the agency is still around, still representing a lot of famous jazz musicians, Americans. It's called Saudades, yeah.
This Thomas, he
passed away.
And then Jack said, listen, Frans, we have a concert coming up, and you're the man. And can you make it? And without, I said, yeah, sure. Yeah, I can pay your flight. And it was not too far from me. It was like 1,000 kilometers. I said, yeah, I could also come by car because then I don't have the bass problems. He said, well, let me know. I can also get you a ticket. And it's, by the way, it's with Gary Allen and with John Abercrombie. Do you know them? I said, yes, I know them. Yeah. So I was ready to go, and then I got a second call, which was a bit disappointing. He said, Frans, I'm very sorry, out of respect of the family of this Thomas. He said, it's maybe an ECM thing. We don't know this bass player. We prefer that we do it without bass. And of course, I could only say, I respect that. But that could have been a beautiful second or third or fourth meeting with Jack DeJohnette. It never happened.
But he loved you, huh? He was always talking about you ever since we played at the BIM house, and I would see him without playing. He said, "How's Frans doing? How's Frans?"
Yeah.
So
Well, as I said in the beginning of this podcast, we had Mike and I have been listening to some recordings who are pretty good, and it would be fantastic if we could show this, but we have to be to wait for a moment to do something with that.
Yeah, because we're recording this podcast in your studio here, close to Amsterdam, and I heard it for the first time after all these years, and it touched me. But we're actually playing some good stuff happening, and So I don't know at this point we're recording this, but maybe I'm going to ask for permission to release this, and then I'll at least put it online, and then of course I'll inform the audience. And Frans, thanks for this nice talk and
thank you,
paying
Mike.
Tribute to this amazing man.
Absolutely, may his music be heard forever. And I think Jack DeJohnette was one of the great innovators on drums. And by listening to his music, I discovered that there was a new recording released last year with Joe Henderson. It's the most incredible drumming you ever heard in your life. Please check it out.
I will. We will. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy my podcast, then please subscribe, leave a rating and a review. Please visit my website, mikedelferro.com, where you also will find links to my other podcast, Self-Management for Musicians. You will also find links to my music and my socials. And of course, please share this podcast with anyone interested. Nothing beats the word of mouth. Thank you.